Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 2 of the BS Hockey Show. BS, of course, stands for brother, sister, and I'm your host, Elian Habanero, here with the star of the show, my sister Jessika. Jessika, what's popping up on your hockey radar today?
Not much. I was just kind of looking around because there's hopefully some action here before. What are we at? Waiting on the expansion draft.
Yeah, it's this
Yeah.
is this is actually the coolest that it's ever been for me.
Well, I was expecting kind of more action, but it's been pretty quiet lately. Just more rumors than anything.
And there's been I'm sure some talks for some signings, but I haven't really seen any big signings, just more buyouts or people retiring.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the big ones as far as free agency goes that we want to look at?
Well, we know free agency ends July 28th there. If you look at the list, there's quite a few actually on the list, but there's only a couple that I think are the notable top guys. There's about 5 of them. I think Kevin Fiala for sure, Andrei Svechnikov, Elias Pettersson, Brady Chuck, and maybe Kale McCarr. I think those will be the ones that teams are after and hopefully sending in offers.
And why does it stop July 28th? Just for a couple weeks, or what?
I think
Why?
that's when the teams have to freeze for the draft and stuff like that. Isn't that when they have to freeze their roster?
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure on that. So
Yeah. Well, and this year's a little cool too because even with the draft there, I think Seattle gets exclusive rights to interview players from July 18th to the 21st. So any free agents that are not protected by teams, Seattle can go out and say hey, we want to offer you a contract. But if they do that and the guys sign it, then that's their pick from that team. But it's kind of neat because they have that exclusive 2 or 3 days that they are only allowed to talk to those players.
cool. after the expansion draft on the 21st, so there's they have the week there kind of thing.
I think it's right before the draft.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I guess it would be after. No, because when's the draft? This week, isn't it?
Next week. Well, there's the expansion draft and then there's the full draft, right? So the expansion draft, and then they have a week to sign people, and then it's probably before the real draft or something like that.
Neat.
So, do you think the contracts seems so tricky nowadays for a fan? I'm such a huge fan, but I feel like I'm casual to you compared to you. But the contracts, we just think, oh, why didn't they sign for this much, or they have this much space, blah blah blah. But I feel like there's a lot that goes on to those contracts and getting them just perfect for the agents and the players and the length of the term and do you find that people are cashing in for their second contract more than it used to be the third contract was your big one almost?
Yeah, it's weird because it used to be your first one was your rookie, then your second one was kind of your show me, and your third one was your payout. But it seems like now, if you produce in your first year, your second contract's your moneymaker.
Yeah, like Kale McCarr, he's been in the league 2 years, and he almost won. He might have won Rookie of the Year. I don't know.
And he's only 22 years old. And you think these guys are asking for 6, 7, 8 million a season. That's just crazy.
Do you think he would stay put with Colorado? And what do you consider a contender nowadays? If you're gonna sign with a team, you're like, oh, this team looks good on paper, but 2 years ago, St. Louis was the worst team in the league at the halfway point of the season. Then they won it, and Montreal fired their coach early this year, and then made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So are you just, as a player, looking to get the contract you want, or do you oh, I'll take a little bit less to go to this team because they,
Seems more like they're out for the long-term contracts more nowadays. I'm not sure if that's because they want stability or they want guarantee that they're in a spot, but we don't see a whole lot 1, 2, 3 year contracts. It seems to be 5 years and up nowadays.
They want to get their finances in order and buy a house and know where they stand.
That's got to be hard to build a hockey team though around guys that make $6, $7, $8 million.
Yeah. Do we know if the salary cap's going up this year at all, or do you?
I'm pretty sure I heard it was supposed to stay flat, and it might be the same way next year too.
So everybody wants a raise, but you can't.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the two notable ones too, the free agents on there, there's that Kirill Kaprizov and Quinn Hughes. They're not eligible, so they're not eligible to receive an offer sheet, which is kind of neat, especially if you're a Canuck fan like me.
So what does that mean? They're not eligible, they're free agents, but they can't sign a contract? So they just
I believe their teams have exclusive rights because I think they haven't played enough games yet as a entry-level contract in the NHL. Even Quinn, he didn't play very many games.
Yeah, it's only been a year and a half, a half a season, and then
So they can take contracts from their teams that they're playing with, though. That's usually where their contracts come in. Because I know that I was reading, everybody's all kind of shocked because Kirill turned down an 8 million year contract, or 9 million.
So
But
why?
it goes back to your previous question, though. Why did he turn it down? Maybe he was looking for something. Maybe it's not about the money.
Oh yeah, so
Maybe it's about location.
he's going to wait until he's played enough games and then sign something more desirable to him, because that seems
Maybe.
pretty good contract in my opinion there.
I think so too. But like you said, we don't really know if he's looking. Maybe he was looking for something shorter. Who knows?
So it's kind of like when you have a no trade clause in your contract, it's kind of like that. Like when you haven't played enough games, you can't go anywhere else. It's like the opposite though. It's like for the team's benefit, not for your benefit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and that no trade contract. Speaking of that, no trade clause. There's a lot that are waiving that now for Seattle. It seems there's a couple of big names that are not too keen on staying now, so to speak.
And can they do that? Like, if they waive their no trade clause, can they just say, I'm only waiving it for these 2 or 3 teams? Like,
I'm pretty sure they can. Yeah, I think they can make like a list that I read about all the time. Yeah, they present their list that they want to be traded to, and then you can try and make a deal out that way.
Because didn't Duncan Keith have one, and then he waived it? Oh, okay. So
I think a lot of teams do actually, or a lot of players do.
I think that's an important one for people nowadays. Like if they're going to sign long term, they're like, I'm going to sign long term, but you're not going to trade me unless I want to be traded, kind of.
That's right. Well, and I ask you too, out of those 5 guys, Kevin Fiala, Andrei Svechnikov, Elias Pettersson, Brady Tkachuk, Cale Makar, are they all going to sign with their teams, or you think there's going to be I don't know.
Well, and it's tough too because some teams have a couple. Like, so do you pick and choose, or do you try and like play them against each other and say, if we can sign all 3 of you for a little cheaper, then we have a better chance at winning? Like,
well, and they're all on teams that are just, I think, are on the brink of being good contenders. So do you really want, I don't know if you want to walk away from that when you've just started.
I guess it depends how they feel. If they feel like they're a major part of why they're a contender, or they feel like they're just a nice big chink of the armor, I guess.
Well, the Avalanche might lose Landeskog, so that might be a deciding factor too. If you lose one of your big name guys.
What was that about? I didn't hear anything about that.
No, I was just reading that they're just not on the same page on contract talks, basically.
Oh, okay. So he's a free agent as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Man, I would want to stay in Colorado. They seem like they've been a really good team the last couple of years.
Yeah, they seem like a strong team, actually. They're one of the top, I believe. Even like if you look at Carolina, like I think they're up and coming. They've been a strong team for the last 2 years, but now I think they're going to make a push here to make the finals probably.
And it's so weird because back in when I used to be a fan of hockey when I was younger, and they'd have all these expansion teams came in, they usually sucked for the first couple of years. It was rebuild mode from the start. And then Las Vegas just came in and made it to the finals in their first year. Do you think Seattle's going to go back to the old ways, or like more in the middle, or like because there's so many good players to pick from, they could be a playoff team the first year?
I'm going to make a bold prediction and say they make the playoffs the first year too. There's just too many good players in the league now. Like nowadays, you don't have any bad players. Like before, you had maybe your first line was all your good team, your players. But nowadays, you have 3-4 lines are all top guys. So you're like Seattle is just picking for the cream of the crop.
And there's so many injuries, and then so many people that are on 2-way contracts where they can send them down. They can't. I feel like at the beginning of the year, you have this good team, but by the time you make a playoffs, it's like at least a third of them are different players.
Yeah, it's all about depth these days, that's for sure. You have to have a lot of good players in the wings that can take over and step in.
And we had another retiree, Kevin Miller from Boston. He hasn't even played that long, it doesn't feel like.
No, I think a lot of his was due to injuries. Seems like it wasn't like something he really was okay with, but sometimes the facts of life are you want to actually have life, and hockey is just hockey sometimes.
Yeah, that may be why they're trying to get these contracts nowadays, because I feel careers are shorter and shorter. Like you don't see a lot of 20-year careers. And one thing you really don't see barely anymore is one player sticking with the same team at their whole career. That's a rarity.
He was with Boston for 7 years. That's not too bad, actually. He got 71 points in 352 games, which is You know, for a guy that was injured, that's pretty darn good. He can be proud of that, and
Yeah, maybe I find a
Yeah.
lot of them are getting into doing this kind of stuff, like injured players. They'll start doing segments on Hockey Tonight and that kind of stuff, and a lot of
Well,
podcasts starting.
even jumping into like roles in coaching and, like you said, broadcasting, and that's kind of neat to see, actually.
And anything else that you noticed? You said the draft. Didn't they announce the full order of that, or?
Yeah, they finally released and sent out the picture of the full order of the teams for the draft coming up. And one notable one is number 11 has been disqualified. That's the Arizona Coyotes due to things that happened in August of 2020, apparently. So if you're into some drama, maybe search that up and have a little gossip gander.
So whoever is number 12 is now number 11, technically.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they went up. And do you think people have a good mind who they're going to take, at least in the first couple rounds? Like, is there a big, excuse me for being kind of ignorant, but like, usually like there's so much juniors, like, oh, here I live in Kitchener. There was no Kitchener Rangers this year. So there was no hockey in some places for minors for like a year and a half. So is this draft stacked now because it's got 2 years worth of players, or is it less good people to pick from because there's been no action in the minors? So it's like you don't have a read on them like you used to.
I think there's a couple top good ones, but I think there's only 3 that I think for sure will go 1, 2, and 3. The ones that they keep talking about is that Powers and Hughes, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So I think the top 6 will probably be what people expect, and then it might be interesting after that. But there wasn't a whole lot of notable players up and coming in the draft this year, or even last year. But they're kind of at a disadvantage because, unfortunately, they were shut down, right? And it's hard to showcase yourself when you can't play.
Yeah. And do you feel like, depending on who Seattle takes, like if there's only 2 teams that they're going to pick, maybe 3 goalies. I don't know how many goalies they get to pick, but if, let's say, the 2 teams that get goalies, they might be looking for a goalie in the draft now that Seattle took their goalie.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder too if we'll see any like trades or signings right on draft day and stuff like that, because there's a couple teams, like even the Canucks, like they have some contracts that they want to get rid of. Like, do they really need a 9th round, 1st round pick? Like, they have a lot of guys in the wings right now, so maybe they need to get rid of a bad contract and say, hey, we'll take the hit this year and build our team next year.
Yeah, it depends how good your minor league team is in depth, I guess, right? Like how much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anything
that's
else?
cool to know. Yeah, that's cool to note about Canucks though, because their new affiliate team in Abbotsford, they released their name. They're going to be the Abbey Canucks with the Johnny Canuck logo. That's pretty cool.
I saw that.
Have to check that out. Yeah.
I want the jersey actually, or a hat. Like,
yes.
Yeah, pretty nice.
It's not the skate, but we'll take the Johnny Canuck, I guess. That's pretty cool.
Well, this is kind of our bonus episode. We said once a week, but we thought we'd slide one in there. Any closing comments?
Nope, just looking excited. And like I said, to the expansion draft, I want to see how they build their team. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining me once again here on episode 2 of the BS Hockey Show with my sister Jessica and me, Cuba, Elian Habanero. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.